The sun had just begun to rise, casting a soft orange glow over the temple grounds. Yet inside the meditation hall, all was still. The seeker sat cross-legged, eyes closed, but within them, the chaos of the world raged. Their breath was shallow, their mind a whirlwind of thoughts, each one competing for attention, pushing them further from the peace they so desperately sought. Each breath, each moment of stillness felt hollow, an echo of the peace they had once known. Why can I not find stillness? They thought. Despite years of practice, despite the teachings of the Zen Master, they felt no closer to the clarity they sought. The weight of the world, their worries, their desires, they all seemed to press on their chest like stones. It was as if they were standing at the edge of a deep abyss, afraid to jump, afraid to let go. And yet they knew they had no choice. The path was unclear, the steps unsure, but they must keep walking. Days passed, but the seeker's internal turmoil only deepened. The Zen Master spoke often of the nature of the mind, how it constantly clung to desires, attachments, and expectations. But the more the seeker listened, the more lost they became. Every meditation session felt like a failure. The quiet, peaceful moments they craved seemed further away than ever. Why can't I just let go? They thought, staring at the moonlit sky one evening. Their mind continued to wander, caught in the cycle of doubt and frustration. It was as if they had climbed to the highest mountain, only to find that the peak was farther away than ever. They had sought peace, but instead, they found a deeper emptiness. The weight of this realization settled in their chest, heavy and suffocating. Is this the way of Zen? The seeker wondered. Am I destined to always search, never to find? The next morning, the Zen Master asked the seeker to accompany him on a walk through the forest. Come, the Master said simply. The walk was long, the path winding through dense trees, the sounds of birds and rustling leaves filling the air. With every step, the seeker found themselves lost in thought, their mind wandering like a leaf caught in a stream. The Master, however, was completely still, present in every moment. His steps were slow and deliberate, his breathing steady. At one point, the seeker asked, Master, how do you find peace? The Zen Master stopped and looked at them with calm eyes. Peace is not something you find, he replied. It is something you already are, hidden beneath the layers of your thoughts. The next few days were filled with moments of reflection. The Zen Master's words haunted the seeker. Peace is not something you find. The more they meditated, the more they realized that their constant searching was the very thing that kept them from peace. Their mind, restless and full of desire, was a barrier. And so the seeker began to slowly let go, not of the external world, but of the need to control it, to force it into their image of what it should be. The process was slow, painful, and often felt futile, but with each small moment of release, the seeker felt a flicker of something, an opening, a glimpse of the peace they had been seeking. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Slowly they began to understand. The key was not in the seeking, but in the surrender. In the days that followed, the seeker began to feel a shift. The grip of control loosened, and with it, the weight of frustration lifted. It wasn't that everything was suddenly clear, it was simply that they had begun to accept the uncertainty. Meditation no longer felt like a task to complete, but a space to simply be. There was no need to force an outcome. And in that space, a flicker of peace began to grow. It was fleeting, like the soft glow of a candle in the wind, but it was real. For the first time in years, the seeker felt a connection to something deeper, something beyond their thoughts and desires. The journey was still long, but for now, they had found a small moment of peace. The next morning, the Zen Master guided the seeker to the edge of the temple grounds. The air was crisp, the ground still damp from the night's rain. The seeker had been meditating more consistently now, but their mind still wandered at times, slipping back into the cycles of doubt and fear. The mind is a forest, the Zen Master said softly, and we must walk through it patiently, with no goal other than to simply be present. The seeker stood still, listening to the quiet rustle of the leaves, trying to let go of their need for certainty. Their journey felt like an endless maze, each turn bringing them deeper into their own confusion. "Why does it seem so hard to be at peace?" the seeker asked. The Zen master looked at them, his face serene. "Because you are trying to find peace," he replied. "It is not something you seek. It is something you allow." That afternoon, the seeker went for a walk alone, reflecting on the Zen master's words. The path through the forest was quiet, save for the sound of birds calling in the distance. They had spent so many years searching for answers, always striving, always seeking. But the more they searched, the more they felt disconnected. It was as though the harder they tried, the further peace slipped away. "Am I doomed to search forever?" they wondered. The trees around them seemed to whisper, urging them to stop seeking, to simply let the world be as it is. With every step, the seeker felt a flicker of something deeper, an unfamiliar stillness beneath the noise. It was faint, but it was there. Perhaps peace is not an answer, but a presence, the seeker mused, their footsteps slowing as they stopped in the middle of the forest. As the days passed, the seeker continued to wrestle with the teachings of the Zen master. Their meditation became deeper, but there were still moments of resistance. Each time the seeker tried to sit in stillness, their thoughts would flood back in, carrying with them old anxieties and regrets. One afternoon, the Zen master observed them quietly from a distance. "What are you searching for?" he asked when the seeker approached. The seeker paused, unsure how to answer. "Peace," they said hesitantly. "But I cannot seem to find it." The Zen master nodded slowly, as if this was the answer he had expected. "Peace cannot be found by searching for it," he said. "It is already here, in this very moment, hidden beneath the layers of your mind. Let go of the search, and peace will reveal itself." That evening, the seeker sat by the temple's koi pond, watching the fish glide silently through the water. It was a beautiful sight, but the seeker couldn't seem to fully appreciate it. Their thoughts still lingered on the Zen master's words, "Let go of the search." What did that mean? How could they let go when they had spent their entire life searching? The moonlight reflected on the water's surface, casting a soft glow on the seeker's face. As they sat there, they felt a sudden, subtle shift. A realization, quiet and almost imperceptible. Perhaps they were not the one who needed to act. Perhaps peace wasn't something to be grasped, but something to be allowed to unfold. For the first time, the seeker sat in stillness without the need to achieve anything. Thought rippled gently, and the seeker felt an unfamiliar calm settle in their chest. The following morning, the seeker awoke with a renewed sense of clarity. The confusion that had plagued their mind seemed to have quieted, leaving behind a deep sense of peace that was not dependent on anything outside themselves. The Zen master approached them as they sat in the meditation hall. "How do you feel today?" he asked. The seeker opened their eyes and smiled. A small, serene smile. "I feel still," they replied. "Not searching, not striving, just being." The Zen master's lips curled slightly in approval. "You have begun to see," he said quietly. "You are the peace you seek. It is not something to be found. It is who you already are, beneath your thoughts, beneath your desires." The seeker nodded slowly, the realization settling deeply within them. For the first time in their journey, they felt truly present. The next phase of the seeker's journey was one of quiet acceptance. The lessons from the Zen master began to sink in, and the seeker found themselves becoming more attuned to the present moment. But it wasn't easy. There were days when their mind would race, and the urge to search, to grasp, would return. The pull of the past of old attachments was still strong. One afternoon, the seeker found themselves wandering the temple grounds once again, deep in thought. The Zen master appeared beside them, walking slowly, as if in sync with the seeker's own pace. "You are not lost," the master said quietly. "You are simply forgetting to walk without expectation." The seeker stopped, their heart racing. "I don't understand," they said. "How can I let go of all I've been taught to pursue? How can I live without seeking something?" The Zen master smiled, his voice soft but firm. "Peace is not an achievement. It is the recognition that you are already complete. The days grew longer, and the seeker spent more time in reflection. Their meditation was becoming less about pushing away thoughts, and more about simply observing them. The mind was like the sky, vast and full of clouds. Thoughts were fleeting, but the sky itself remained still and infinite. One morning, after a long meditation, the seeker sat outside by the temple's ancient stone well, gazing into its depths. The reflection of the trees, the sky, and the distant temple grounds rippled in the water. It was beautiful, but it was also distorted. The seeker thought about how their mind had been just like the water in the well, so often clouded, disturbed by the wind of their desires. "How do I keep the water still?" they asked aloud, almost as if speaking to the well itself. From behind them, the Zen Master's voice answered, "The water is still when you stop grasping at it." Days turned into weeks, and the seeker's understanding began to deepen. The struggle to control the mind, the fight to find peace, was gradually being replaced with a quiet surrender to the present moment. But there were still times when doubt crept in, times when they wondered if they were truly progressing, or if they were simply fooling themselves. One evening, after a particularly difficult meditation, the seeker went to the Zen Master. "Master," they said, "I feel like I am still trapped. My mind is calmer, but I am still searching for peace. I can't stop searching." The Zen Master sat silently for a moment before replying, his voice soft but full of conviction. "You search because you have not yet realized that what you are looking for is already here. You have been looking for peace as if it were something outside you. It is within you, in the stillness beneath the thoughts. You are the peace you seek." The Zen Master's words lingered with the seeker as they continued their practice. The subtle shift was happening, but it was hard to fully grasp. One afternoon, the seeker went to the temple's meditation hall for their usual practice. The space was empty, save for a few small candles flickering in the corners. As the seeker sat, they noticed the quiet buzz of thoughts racing through their mind, but they didn't try to push them away. Instead, they simply observed. What if peace is just here, they thought, not in the future, not after a perfect meditation, but right now. For the first time, the seeker was able to sit with their thoughts, without the need to control or change them. They let them flow, just as the river flows, without resistance. And in that quiet surrender, they felt something shift within themselves, a fleeting but profound stillness. It wasn't permanent, but it was real. The days blurred together, and the seeker found themselves less caught up in the constant search for peace. They had stopped pushing against their thoughts and began simply allowing them to be. In doing so, they felt a sense of freedom that was almost like a breath of fresh air after years of holding their breath. One day, as they meditated in the garden, the Zen Master approached them once more. "You have learned something important," the Master said quietly. "You are no longer seeking peace because you've realized it's already within you. The struggle was never with the world, but with your own mind. When you cease the struggle, peace is revealed." The seeker opened their eyes, and for the first time they truly understood. "I am peace," they whispered to themselves, the words full of quiet realization. The seeker's practice deepened in the days that followed. Each day brought a new level of subtle awareness, a new layer of truth. Yet, there were moments when the old habits returned, moments of restlessness, impatience, and fear. It was as though the past, with its unresolved emotions and attachments, refused to let go. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult meditation, the seeker sat under a large tree in the temple garden. The weight of the world pressed on their shoulders once more, and they found themselves questioning their progress. Why does peace feel so fleeting? They wondered. Why does it slip away when I need it the most? The Zen Master walked slowly toward them, his footsteps quiet on the grass. He sat beside the seeker without a word, his presence steady and unwavering. After a long pause, the seeker finally spoke. "Master, I feel like I'm still searching, still struggling to find peace. It's like I can't escape my own mind." The Zen Master nodded thoughtfully. "The mind is like a cloud," he said. It passes, but we often cling to it. Peace is not something that comes and goes. It is our attachment to the clouds that keeps us from seeing the sky. The Zen Master's words echoed in the seeker's mind. It is our attachment to the clouds that keeps us from seeing the sky. The seeker had been so caught up in the effort to find peace that they had failed to realize that peace was not something to be found, but something to be allowed. The next morning, the seeker walked through the temple grounds again, reflecting on the Master's teaching. The breeze was gentle, and the morning sunlight filtered through the trees, casting soft shadows on the path. The seeker stopped by the small pond, its surface smooth and undisturbed. For the first time, they allowed themselves to simply observe without judgment, without expectation. They noticed how the water reflected the trees, the sky, and the passing clouds, but without trying to hold on to any of it. It was all transient, moving, flowing. Maybe peace is like this water, the seeker thought. It's not something to hold on to, but something to flow with. As they stood by the pond, the seeker realized that their struggle had been one of resistance. The peace they sought was already here, but they had been too busy clinging to the idea of it to recognize it. In the days that followed, the seeker's meditation practice began to shift. The need to control their thoughts, to force themselves into stillness, began to fade. Instead, they focused on simply being with whatever arose. The thoughts, the emotions, the distractions, they all came, but they no longer had the same grip. The seeker's mind became like the sky, vast and open, with clouds drifting by without attachment. One afternoon, the Zen Master invited the seeker to sit with him in the garden, in silence. Hours passed as they sat side by side, both of them lost in their own quiet reflections. The seeker noticed the sounds around them, the rustling of leaves, the distant call of birds, the soft hum of life. For the first time, they were fully present in the moment, not searching for anything, just being. When the Zen Master finally spoke, it was with a softness that mirrored the peace of the garden. "You have learned something important," he said. "You are no longer trying to grasp at peace. You are becoming it." Despite the peace the seeker had begun to cultivate, there were moments of doubt. One evening, after a quiet dinner with the Zen Master, the seeker asked, "Master, how do I know when I've truly found peace? How do I know when I've let go of the search?" The Zen Master looked at them, his expression calm, almost amused. "You will know," he said simply, "when you stop asking the question, when you stop seeking the answer, when you realize that peace is not something you find, but something you allow to emerge." The seeker sat in silence, letting the words settle deep within them. "But what if I slip back into the search?" they asked. The Zen Master's smile was subtle but knowing. "The clouds will come, but the sky remains unchanged." The seeker spent the following days in quiet contemplation, continuing their practice with a new sense of surrender. They no longer felt the need to control their thoughts or force their emotions into submission. Each day they allowed whatever came to arise, and in doing so the peace they had been seeking began to unfold more naturally. One morning, as the seeker sat by the koi pond once more, the Zen Master approached them. "You have come far," the Master said, his voice quiet but full of approval. The seeker looked up at him, their face peaceful and calm. "I feel it, Master," they said softly. "The peace I've been searching for, it's here within me already." The Zen Master nodded. "You have learned the most important lesson. Peace is not found in the future. It is already present in the now. You have always been the peace you sought." The seeker's days had taken on a rhythm of quiet reflection. They had stopped trying to force peace into their life, and instead allowed it to flow with each moment. Still, despite the growing calm within, there were times when the past, the unresolved pains, would creep into their mind like shadows in the corners of their consciousness. One morning, as they meditated in the garden, a memory from their childhood surfaced, an image of a loved one lost, a betrayal that had shaped their path. It was a fleeting thought, but it brought with it a wave of old sadness. The seeker opened their eyes and looked around, seeing the peaceful surroundings of the temple, but feeling a ripple in their heart. "How do I move beyond this?" they whispered, almost to themselves. The Zen Master, who had been nearby, stepped forward. "You are not moving beyond anything," he said softly. "You are simply letting go of the attachment to it. The past is like a river that has already passed. It is no longer here. What remains is the flow." The Zen Master's words stirred something deep within the seeker. They began to understand that peace was not a place to arrive at, but a way of being. Still, the pull of the past was strong. Every time they thought they had let go of the hurt, it resurfaced in another form. In an effort to confront these feelings, the seeker asked the Zen Master, "How do I stop my emotions from controlling me? How do I stop the pain from rising?" The Zen Master was silent for a moment, his gaze steady. "You are not controlling your emotions. You are simply allowing them to flow through you like the wind. You are not the wind, nor the cloud, but the space in which they move. Embrace the space, and the storm will pass." The seeker sat quietly, contemplating this teaching. "I am the space," they whispered as the realization began to take root. The pain was not their identity, it was simply something passing through them. In the days that followed, the seeker practiced with renewed focus, but it was not without struggle. The more they attempted to sit in stillness, the more they realized how tightly their ego had gripped the very idea of peace. The need to control, to define the experience, was still there. "What if I am not meant for this path?" they thought, sitting in silence one evening, feeling the weight of the thought pull them down. But in that moment, the Zen Master appeared at their side, sitting down without a word. For a long time they sat together, the only sound being the breeze rustling through the trees. Then, in the quiet, the Zen Master finally spoke. "Peace is not about becoming something. It is about unbecoming everything that prevents you from being." The seeker felt something shift within them, a small opening in their heart, a space where they could simply exist without the pressure of achieving or becoming. The seeker's path became quieter, but the journey was far from over. The temptation to revert to old patterns of thought still lingered, but they were no longer defined by them. In one of their daily walks, the Zen Master spoke again, his voice soft but with weight. "You will continue to face the clouds in your mind. Do not fear them. They are not permanent. The sky remains unchanged beneath them." The seeker looked up at the sky, the clouds shifting and changing, but the vastness of the blue sky remained. "The clouds come and go," they said, realizing the truth in the Master's words. "And the sky remains." The seeker understood that peace was not something they had to fight for. It was already there beneath the turbulence. The practice was not about forcing stillness, but about letting go of resistance. The stillness came naturally, like the sky clearing after a storm. In the days that followed, the seeker continued to practice, but now with a deeper sense of ease. The attachment to the outcome faded, and with it, the internal tension. One day, as the seeker sat by the koi pond, watching the fish swim lazily through the water, the Zen Master approached once more. "You have learned much," he said, his voice gentle but full of approval. The seeker smiled, a quiet understanding in their eyes. "I have stopped searching," they said softly. "I have stopped trying to hold on to peace. I have learned to let it come and go, like the clouds in the sky." The Zen Master nodded. "Peace is not a destination, it is a way of being. And you have begun to embody that way." The seeker's heart felt light, as though a burden had been lifted. They were no longer searching for peace, they were living it. Time seemed to flow differently now. The seeker no longer measured their days in struggles or in progress. They simply moved through the rhythms of life, each moment unfolding with effortless ease. But even in this calm, the world outside the temple was still full of distractions. One afternoon, as the seeker walked down the temple path, they noticed a group of travelers passing by. Their conversation was filled with hurried talk of business, goals, and ambitions, their lives busy, their minds racing. For a brief moment, the seeker felt a flicker of unease. Is that what the world has come to? They wondered. Constant striving, always searching, never satisfied. The Zen Master appeared beside them, as though reading their thoughts. "The world does not need to be changed," he said softly. "It is the mind that must be transformed." The seeker looked at him, still contemplating the travelers. "But how can we find peace in such a world?" they asked. The Zen Master smiled gently. "Peace is not found in the world around you. It is found in how you see it. The clouds may cover the sky, but the sky remains unchanged." The Zen Master's words stayed with the seeker. As days passed, the seeker continued to practice with a newfound understanding that peace was not something to be chased, nor was it dependent on external circumstances. But there were moments, like the one with the travelers, when the world would come rushing back in, reminding them of the noise, the busyness, the distractions. "How do I stay centered in the midst of all this?" the seeker asked the Zen Master one evening, after returning from a brief trip into the nearby town. The Zen Master paused, his gaze thoughtful. "The world will always be what it is," he said. "But how you respond to it is up to you. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of awareness within it." The seeker listened intently, the truth of the Master's words settling deep within them. It was not about controlling the world, but about being present within it, regardless of its noise. The seeker's understanding began to shift. They spent more time in the garden, in quiet contemplation, watching the movement of the clouds, the flow of the wind, and the ripples on the pond. Each element, each natural rhythm seemed to hold a lesson. Yet, despite this growing inner peace, there was one thing the seeker still struggled with: the fear of losing it. They had tasted peace, but the fear of slipping back into old habits, old patterns of thought, lingered like a shadow. One evening, as they sat by the koi pond, watching the fish swim lazily through the water, they turned to the Zen Master. "Master, what if I lose this peace? What if the fear comes back?" The Zen Master, who had been watching the koi with quiet attention, turned to the seeker. "You will feel the clouds, and you will feel the sun," he said, his voice calm. "Both are part of the same sky. Do not fear the clouds. They do not change the sky. Just watch them pass." Days passed and the seeker found themselves faced with new challenges, small distractions that pulled them away from their practice. They could feel the pull of old habits, the desire to control, to fix, to strive. But now, they recognized them for what they were: clouds in the sky. The Zen Master had taught them that peace wasn't the absence of thoughts or feelings, but the acceptance of whatever arose without resistance. "The clouds will always come," the Zen Master reminded them one morning as they sat together by the temple's ancient stone steps. "But the sky remains. And so do you. You are not the clouds. You are the space in which they pass." The seeker closed their eyes, taking a deep breath. For the first time, they understood that their peace was not something to hold on to, but something to rest in, just as the sky rests in the ever-changing weather. The seeker awoke one morning with a deep sense of clarity. The fear of losing peace had begun to dissolve, replaced with a quiet assurance that the peace they had been seeking was always within them. It wasn't about achieving something, but about allowing the present moment to unfold naturally. The Zen Master's words echoed in their mind. "You are not the clouds. You are the space in which they pass." The seeker spent the morning meditating by the temple's large bell, listening to its silent reverberations. Each sound, each moment of stillness, felt like an invitation to simply be. When the Zen Master approached, he offered a rare smile. "You who have learned much," he said. "You are no longer searching but simply being. That is the true path." The seasons had shifted, and with them, the seeker's practice had evolved. What once seemed like a struggle, a constant battle for peace, now felt more like a natural unfolding. The clouds still came, but their presence no longer disturbed the stillness of the sky. One morning, as the seeker walked through the temple grounds, they realized that they had not searched for peace in days. Instead, they had been living in it. They stood for a moment, breathing in the fresh air, taking in the beauty of the world around them without any need to change it. The birds sang in the trees, the wind rustled the leaves, and all of it was just as it should be. The seeker thought of the Zen Master's teachings. Peace is not something to seek, it is something to allow. And for the first time, they felt a profound sense of gratitude for simply being alive, for the gift of the present moment. I have arrived, the seeker whispered to themselves. I am here. That evening, the seeker found themselves sitting beside the koi pond, watching the fish swim lazily through the water. They had spent so many years searching for meaning, for peace, for fulfillment, and now all of that felt distant. The need to achieve had fallen away. The Zen Master appeared beside them, sitting down without a word. The seeker turned to him. Master, I feel different, they said quietly, as though I've been searching for something that was never lost. The Zen Master looked at them, his expression filled with quiet approval. You have discovered the truth, he said. What you sought was always within you. It was never separate from you. The key was to stop seeking and simply allow yourself to be. The seeker smiled softly, their heart light. I understand now, they said, their voice filled with deep knowing. Peace isn't something to find, it's something to become. The next few weeks passed in quiet contemplation. The seeker's life had transformed, but there was no grand shift, only a subtle unfolding. Every moment became an opportunity to live fully, to experience the present without judgment or attachment. One day, while walking through the garden, the seeker felt a familiar presence beside them. It was the silent witness, the humble presence who had always observed but never interfered. The silent witness had been a constant, though silent, companion on this journey. They had never spoken a word, but their presence had always provided the seeker with a sense of deep peace. You have come far, the silent witness seemed to say with their eyes. The seeker stopped and smiled, grateful for the quiet guidance they had offered, even in silence. I have learned to listen, the seeker whispered, and to simply be. The seeker's peace was no longer a fleeting moment, it was becoming a constant. The past no longer haunted them, nor did the future cause anxiety. They had learned that true peace lies in the acceptance of what is right now, without resistance. One evening, after a long day of meditation and quiet reflection, the Zen Master approached them. You have reached the stillness, he said, his voice gentle but firm. But remember, the journey is never truly complete. You will continue to face challenges. Clouds will still pass across the sky, but you no longer need to fear them. The sky remains, always, and so does your peace. The seeker nodded, feeling the truth of these words. I no longer need to search, they said softly. I am peace. The Zen Master smiled, his eyes filled with quiet satisfaction. And that, he said, is the greatest lesson. As the days turned into months, the seeker's life was no longer defined by struggle or the pursuit of external goals. They had come to understand that life was not about achieving peace, but about surrendering to it. They had let go of the need to control their circumstances, and in doing so, they had found freedom. One final evening, as the seeker sat alone in the garden, the setting sun casting long shadows across the temple grounds, they felt a deep sense of gratitude. I am not lost, they whispered, gazing out over the horizon. I am here. I am exactly where I need to be. In that moment, the seeker understood that the journey was never about finding an end. It was about embracing each step with awareness, with presence. And in that awareness, peace was always with them. The seeker closed their eyes, breathing deeply, feeling the peace they had long searched for, now fully embodied.